We have anyone?
Yep, we got, hold on, I'll just share it so we can. Yeah, you do have some people in the audience, so they can raise their hand.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. We need to introduce ourselves around the table. I'm Steve O'Neill, Chairman of CEDC. Joe Hughes, member.
Joe Manning, member.
Mary Villalon, member.
So you see on the agenda, we have just one topic tonight, and that's the discussion of potential marijuana dispensary discussions. Again, let me state at the outset, this committee at this point in time doesn't have any vote at this point in time, one way or the other. What we want to do is just hear everyone's thoughts and comments, ideas on what they think of either a pro or a con as to a dispensary here in the town of Yarmouth. At some point in time, I think our goal on this committee would be to ultimately get to a place where we would decide yea or nay on whether or not we'd like a dispensary and take it to the next step, which would obviously be internal to the regulatory planning processes that go through the town, and then eventually to Board of Selectmen and eventually to a town meeting. But again, as of today, there is no hidden agenda. There's no effort underway behind the scenes or otherwise to get this before Board of Selectmen or the town meeting without due diligence and discussion and thoughtful comment and ideas on how we want to proceed. So with that said, I'd like to just open it up to anyone who'd like to speak from the board, the committee first, and then we'll open it up to the audience afterwards. Again, we could just keep comments as far as the audience goes to 2 or 3 minutes, and hopefully we don't have too many people, but if we do, that we speak. If one person says one thing and other people want to say the same thing, let's not repeat ourselves, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that's it. I'll open up the discussion with the committee and what you folks have to say.
Steve, are you going to make I'm sorry, but you're going to make a presentation as well as just a general discussion?
Just a general discussion. We just want to get it out there. We just to show everyone it's open. So we've not made up our minds anything. So at some point in time, if the audience and or the committee would like to have a formal presentation, we can do that as well.
I'll start the conversation just by saying thank you to Kyle for it was a very lengthy committee packet and very detailed information for us to go through. So I think that was very helpful to look what other communities and states have done, who's approved it and who has not approved it. On the Cape, I thought was helpful as well. I was pretty surprised by some of the statistics, financial as well as usage.
Right, right.
And I was, I guess some of my questions comes from how do they gather some of that data? Especially when, because I know part of the concern that I've heard is adolescents, right, and use for them.
Right.
So how do they actually capture that data? And I don't know how we can answer that, but just to start the conversation going. That's
Yeah.
where I'm at. So, thank you.
That was very helpful. Yeah.
Hey, Maria.
Are you referring to adolescent usage?
Yes,
Didn't the information say that it's down?
it did, but I'm just curious how they gather that data and what qualified them to, what's the age of an adolescent?
That's probably in the study.
I know, I just didn't
Yeah.
see that. So, is that what it said?
Probably, I don't know.
Oh, right, that's what I wanted. It could have been 13 to 15.
Usually 12, 15.
I absolutely think that this is part of the economic development discussion for the town. I think that not being a first mover, Yarmouth has allowed itself to sit back and watch all of the other implementations that have gone on in the Commonwealth. I think that if there were some serious red flags, that there would be no shortage of news articles and op-eds and opinions relative to the evils of cannabis, but that just hasn't been the case from my perspective. So I think it's a good opportunity for the town to capture some revenue that, relatively speaking, we're not even in the game. And it's revenue that, from the statistics that we've seen, the updated statistics on usage, we know that people in Yarmouth are using cannabis, but the revenue's not staying in Yarmouth.
Who's Joe, man?
I'm pretty much on board with what Joe is saying. I think that it is an economic opportunity for us, and especially since it's the majority of the mid-cape towns are closed out from it. I guess I just ask us for us to make a change, it need to be a bylaw change, a town meeting. And then zoning also, or not? So it would just be a bylaw.
Yeah, there would
Change
be-
this is just a town meeting.
It would be a zoning bylaw change, yeah.
Yeah, so as part of the initial legislation, in order to preclude applicants or dispensary owners or purveyors of cannabis from being able to build as of right in any commercial zone, towns had to set up zones because it was made legal by a vote at the Commonwealth level, at the state level. But then municipalities were able to take a vote internally
Right.
to decide whether or not they were going to allow it in that particular zone. So I don't know exactly how that's accomplished, but I do know that we have an established zone, the adult entertainment zone,
It's
that's
the,
out by
yeah, Rich,
old exit 7, whatever that is now. Correct. And
so we would need a 2/3 majority vote at town meeting to reverse it because it's a zoning bylaw.
Yeah, I think a lot of the initial apprehension that people had, that a lot in the other towns that have done it really hasn't. It's not really there, what a lot of the apprehension was now. So I think it's definitely time to revisit it at least.
So just so I'm clear, Joe, you said it just would be allowed in the adult entertainment zone?
Yeah, it was a special zone
You want me to pull up the map?
set up, yeah.
I think that's
It encompasses
It's a
the
big
entire,
point, because it's not being suggested that you can go anywhere in the town, it's just into one.
no, it's that crosshatch red zone there. Which, to this gentleman's description, it's Ansel Hallett, that whole UPS area with a FedEx, et cetera.
Okay.
It's basically underneath the on-ramp.
Yep.
Which I think we would all agree is a fairly isolated section of town.
Right.
And also easily accessible.
Correct.
You know.
To
going
Joe's
into it,
point,
just- yeah.
the fact that the surrounding towns haven't changed their opinion of it, we wouldn't be a first mover on the Cape, but we'd certainly be a point of interest on the mid-Cape.
Do we have a specific question on the table? We're
No,
just
no, we're
asking for
just-
people's thoughts.
We're just going around the table right now, just offering our thoughts and input on what we think about.
So,
So you
There you
did some material out, get a chance to read it.
so anyway, I mean, I did start doing some research, and I will actually put this in the context that I worked for the Barnstable County Sheriff's Office for 3 years as a job developer. So did a lot of intervention and a lot of study and et cetera about addiction. So we clearly know, and the CDC does confirm that this is an addictive substance. And so therefore, I don't agree that it is just an economic decision. For me, it's a decision that needs to, obviously, townspeople have to make this decision. But I wouldn't want to make a decision without the input of the police chief and even the fire chief relative to respondings of overdose and other issues related to that. So in that context, yes, there's financial benefits to the town, and yet we need to know what the negatives are. And I don't think that we have enough sufficient information in order to do that. And we certainly need input from our police and fire chiefs. So you had asked a question, Mary. So again, everybody has a different study. I do have some concerns, and I can also say this in the context that I did own a liquor store, and it is a regulated industry, and so you don't take that lightly. So this is a report from the economics of marijuana, how much states have made from weed. You know what, I don't have the source on me, but I'll provide that. It says that of the percentage change in the past month, marijuana use is ages 12 to 17 from 2015 to 2020. It went up 9% in Massachusetts. That's a concern, if it's true.
I think that's the Cato report you're reading from.
No,
No?
That's the one you sent out to us, though, right?
No, I didn't send the Cato up. Who sent out the Cato?
Right, that was part of the meeting packet.
Yeah, that was part of the meeting packet. No,
She
this is
sent out
something,
something
I don't,
different, I don't
No, I think you sent it out. To the group yesterday.
good,
Something different. that was
something
that.
different. Yeah, so I mean, again, you just can't, right. I think you just can't take one report and consider that.
No, there's too many.
So with that being said, my other concern about economic development is, I'm not convinced that the number of jobs per license are actually there and the type of training and that we would need. I'm concerned about the effect on tourism. Our vision statement is really quite clear, family oriented. I don't know the answer to that, and I really don't want to interject my personal feelings about it in it either. I'm just trying to consider it from a more objective point of view. And as somebody who actually did economic development for the Commonwealth, I would like to think that our first focus should be on those businesses that encompass our vision statement first, and that this might be in the toolbox, but I think it should be one of the last options we consider without exhausting all support that we can for our existing businesses, all support that we can for startups, and all support for the people in our town. So regardless of whatever position we might want to make, I would suggest that we don't take an up or down vote. We put a pro or con, perhaps, and it's up to the members. And that we certainly gather input, and then I think I'd like a little bit more clarity whether or not is it the selectmen looking for input from all of the committees, or is it
So
just us?
let me see if I can tackle some of those questions.
Sorry.
No, thank you.
I
That
get
was good. Thank you. We went around before you got here and just asked everyone's thoughts and comments on the idea. And before you got here, what I said beforehand was, this committee is not taking a position right now. It is really getting the topic on the table, get it discussed, do some research on it. Everyone, as you just pointed out, there's studies for, massive amounts of studies for it. There's massive amounts of studies that are against it. Somewhere in between, there's the truth. And there's actual examples out there of states that have it and what's happening. So I think what we need to do is educate ourselves, bring some people in that are more conversant on it to deal with it day to day. And let us come to some point where we feel comfortable enough of either deciding, hey, we want to approve this for the following reasons, or we don't want to approve it for the following reasons. But also recognize that we're just one piece of the puzzle here. It has to go before the regulatory processes in the town. I think the planning board is one of those stops. And it has to go before the board of selectmen. There's another stop, and then it eventually has to go before the town meeting. So there's a long process to go through. We're not here tonight to ram this through by any means. We're really just to educate ourselves and come to a point, at some point, where we all feel comfortable enough on taking the position on. But recognizing that even after we do that, there's a process that has to go through.
And I just, one additional comment is that of all the resources that we have, my professional opinion, tempered by my personal opinion, would like to see that if all the resources that we can devote, that we're devoting it towards centric economic development in support of our existing businesses. The ones who left us and maybe want to come back are small businesses. And that we're not putting all of our resources into this one pot.
What
That's joke.
resources are you referencing?
Whatever, if it's your time
Right.
or
Right.
monies and studies, etc. I think
So
So, okay. My other comment is, there are enough resources and there's enough data in Massachusetts, and that if we want to invite anybody here, it should be a comment from the regulatory agency, the marijuana,
Cannabis
the
Commission.
cannabis commission. Thank you. Okay.
Your first concern relative to any potential of taking time away from the existing businesses that want to stay here and helping them grow and helping them prosper, I really think is going to be dealt with primarily with Bill Scott and what the town manager and the board of selectmen have said is the priority, and that's wastewater. So a lot of that's going to be, you see the work that's going on with the diffs and tips and all that other stuff. I think a lot of your concerns are going to be allayed by what goes on with that entire
Okay,
process.
I don't agree, but
Okay,
that's okay.
all right. And the second point is, I think what we did, but the town administration and board of selectmen did by bringing additional economic development staff on board was to do just this. Reach out and create some more opportunities for economic growth. And I don't think time spent on this particular business for the town is going to take away from time spent on bringing other businesses. to the town. So that's, and if we feel that's happening, I think we voice our concern with the town manager on that. The voice like, so. That said, what I did say after we heard if everyone's done around the table here, I'd like I'd like to have the audience introduce themselves and again, spend 2 or 3 minutes on what they'd like to say on the topic, and we'll take it. Do we want to go with the people who are sitting on the internet first? Or
Well, is anybody seeking recognition, I guess would be the question.
if not, then we'll start around the table. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Rita Morris. I wanted to jump in here because the word dispensary is being used now. I don't know whether it's just in my mind, but I associate that word with the medical marijuana more than I would with the recreational. And I wonder, why that is injected there. But be that as it may, that's just a comment.
That could have been my fault. I just used that term. I didn't have it. There's no.
That's what their term is. Yeah. Go ahead.
Good.
But anyway, it's interesting. Just yesterday, the entire morning news on one of the local stations had a story that ran on all of the different half-hour and hour segments of how many, what a big increase there has been in the deaths from opioids. And the thing that they mentioned even, well, first of all, from 2011 to in the 10-year period to 2021, it went from 19 to 79. Isn't that like 400% or something like that? So that's, and people seem to think of marijuana in terms of 50 years ago or more, but apparently it's a very different substance right now. It's been augmented in some way. It has been injected with.
It's stronger.
It's much, and now the medical profession is coming to the conclusion that it's causing what is called now the marijuana psychosis, which they're now guessing that the young man who caused the tragedy in Uvalde was in a state of, as a matter of fact, and it even goes back a little bit farther than that, apparently, when this psychiatric problem has been identified as being caused by marijuana. So I think for any community to try and bring this on to themselves as a source of revenue only, I would find that totally unacceptable in view of the information that's out there now. So now I think that's.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine Greeley. I have a question because there was something wasn't answered, and then I'll make my own comments. You had asked who was bringing this forward, was a request from the selectmen from whom, and no one responded in terms of what's the initiation to this board of why you're doing this.
It was brought up at a selectman meeting by, I believe, Selectman Horgan, and maybe also Selectman Smith expressed an interest into looking into the topic. So
Okay, fine. Then I will go ahead with my comments. I'm Christine Greeley. I am a retired licensed mental health counselor, was a school administrator. I'm also the former chair of the Yarmouth Substance Awareness Committee here in town, during which time our motto was and remains no alcohol until 21, no drugs ever. I've been in the field and working in the issues of drug use since 1972 for 50 years. And what we have seen now, and it's even, and I've got some documents here, I'd like to give a copy to the chairman, and I'll also give a copy to Kyle, so these can come. These are current articles that are appearing. What we know is that right now, the THC content of marijuana, even since 1995, is now 4 times greater. And it actually in dabs, it's 20 times greater. The incidence of the mental health and the addiction to marijuana is becoming clearer and clearer to physicians and other organizations who look at and are treating marijuana addictions. And the fact of the matter is that it's been clearly known for quite some time, and I think you also talked about, it's a gateway drug. The use of it by our youth, and if you think about it, marijuana has absolutely no purpose with the THC except to get high. Period. That is the whole sole purpose of it. And, you know, it's one thing for the medical marijuana. Medical marijuana does not have THC in it. And it's like,
That's not true.
vehemently opposed. I think
That's
that
inaccurate. That's inaccurate.
when you take a look at the new research and what is going on with this, you should also be. A lot of the work that we did at the time of the town meeting vote was to take a look at the economic consequences for community. What you also need to look at are the social emotional consequences to the community. It has nothing to do with money. You'd be far better off concentrating on what I think are the barren open shops and other things along Route 28 that, I'm sorry, when you come in from Centerville and you see the trees and how pretty it is, and you cross the bridge to Bass River and you start to see the change and look there, we quite often look like a wide open, empty set of strip malls. It does not do anything for our reputation, nor does it, I agree with you, it's not a family activity. How do you prevent it from being smoked on beaches and other areas where people want to be enjoying this community with their family and friends? The issues of the driving, the accidents and other things caused by it are a nightmare. So the social, emotional and other costs to it will never, never outweigh some kind of small economic benefit to the town of this community. And if indeed you do plan to go forward, I will come out of retirement and help lead the charge to make sure it never passes the town meeting, just so you understand it right now. Thank you.
Just as one point of order, medical marijuana does have THC.
But not to the percentages that you
In
do.
some cases higher,
And it's
actually.
regulated. No, it isn't.
Everyone's comment will be taken into consideration.
Jim,
You have a hand up. You want to do your word
okay.
first, or you want
Yeah.
to come to me?
Tom Nicanello.
Tom Nicanello's got his
Tom
hand up.
Nicanello. Go ahead, Tom.
Good afternoon, everybody. Tom Nicanello. Happy Flag Day.
Yeah,
What's
happy
That's it, right.
Since 1916, Woodrow Wilson declared this day Flag Day, and I see everyone wearing their flag, so that's awesome. Thank you all very much. So, you know, medical marijuana, regular recreational marijuana, it's probably going to be here after our phase 8 in sewer, because that's just the way it goes, right? Everything's going to evolve. Right now, the majority of our population, you know, they don't want it. And the majority of the population in our town will never see phase 8 of our wastewater program, but maybe I will. So, you know, I think it's as business do what they would like, we can probably help them.
Rifted, his friend Rifted.
The state of our town is like under 5% commercial tax rate. It's kind of embarrassing. Hyannis is 44% commercial tax rate. You know, as a resident, we're paying a lot of money to have our services, and the residents draw a lot on that service, and our businesses really don't draw the service as our residents, and we don't have enough business. We lost another business on White's Path just a couple of weeks ago, another vacant spot. We have to find ways to bring people to our community to start businesses and stay here. We don't even have a laundromat in town. Our guests and our residents have to go across the border to have their clothes cleaned. We need to focus on what we need for amenities in our town and try to make that happen. If medical marijuana and recreational marijuana is important, it is important. Other communities have made it work. I assume Yarmouth is going to make it work eventually, but we're on the bottom of the list alphabetically, so it's going to take us time because we do everything slow. So I would just like to say that eventually medical and recreational marijuana will be here. We probably won't see it, but you know, that's what happened with alcohol too, right? That's what happened with cigarettes too. We can go on and on and on, but I think we, you know, I appreciate everyone's effort in trying to make Yarmouth a better community by increasing the commercial tax base. We can't get too many more residents here. We're busting out at 25,000. That's a lot of people. Now, probably next week, and for the next few weeks, we're going to be 85, 90,000 people. And mostly all those people are going to go across the border and they're going to buy their cigarettes and they're going to do something else because we don't have that much retention to keep people in Yarmouth unless they want to sleep here. Our commercial part of our town, I mean, the backbone that we have, our businesses, the 4% that we have that's been here over and over and over again, those people should be honored and admired and you know, they're sticking through the problems that we have. But we got to get some different type of businesses and we can't wait. Hey, everybody have a great Flag Day. I'm going to go and, you know, wave mine outside now. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Hey, Jim.
I'll go after Jim.
I should have gone before that. How do we follow up on Tom Nicanello?
Yeah,
Tom, would you like to go first?
all right, I'll give you a break.
All right, I'll think on this.
Tom Sullivan, West Yarmouth. I'm a living result of an accident from marijuana. I should be dead. 1985, I was on active duty with the Air Force. I was going into work for a training session to conduct a class. 8 o'clock in the morning, I had a driver pull out behind a rider truck going up a hill. I couldn't react. He hit me head on. My car got pushed back 110 feet after impact. The windshield was taken out. The seatbelt was taken out of the car. The doctors wanted to know why I was alive. I suffered 8 impacted vertebrae in my spine, plus a fracture in my pelvis. And I lived. I was able to continue and finish out my career, but it did act up. So you can see I'm totally against it. He was 20 years old. And there's another point I want to bring up. I had to go up to Hanscom, the JAG office up there, when I was healthy enough. They filed third-party liability on this guy and the insurance company. I have a funny feeling he's still paying today. Okay, this could open up to the town on third-party liability. Because you're off, if the town votes to go with it, there's a liability issue. Alcohol, the stores, the bars. The bars are liable if they serve an intoxicated person. That could happen here. My other question is, and I didn't get the clarification, are we talking recreational marijuana or are we talking the medical? There's a big difference.
Recreational.
Recreation, because I know that the medical is very limited in the state. Only a few people have it. And Kyle, what you said, 3 selectmen did favor coming before this committee. Mr. Horgan, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Forrest.
I don't know about
I think
Mr.
Mr.
Forrest.
Forrest said he agreed with it. I watched the meeting.
Okay, so you know better than I do.
I watched the meeting. Okay, and there's a possible conflict on that. Mr. Forrest is still tied in with the Donut Group, which is involved with medical marijuana, or at least trying. Now, the other aspect I'd like to bring up. The town gets the money from taxes from marijuana. Where's it going to put it? It's still not approved at federal levels. Banks cannot take it.
That's true.
Banks cannot take money, and even to this day. And I know there was a,
It's in the clearing accounts through credit unions is how they get it.
If a federal credit union has a FDIC
Yeah,
insurance.
we have
cannot
somebody
take-
here who can speak to the payment aspect if you want.
Now, there was a bill in Congress. Supposedly they try to legalize it. I think that's gone by the board. It's just didn't have enough to do it. I don't think Congress will change the federal law. And yet, there hasn't been a court case at the federal level. Because I questioned this even with Martha Healy when she was here talking about it, and when she was in college. She approved the referendum. But I questioned her in regards to Article 2 of the Constitution, which states that federal law is the law of the land. Okay, and that's the federal exclusion law, I believe it is. In Article 2. I couldn't get an answer from her. The law is Supreme Court ruled, the federal law is the law of the land, so the states could be illegal by passing this. All right, it hasn't been challenged yet. But I don't recommend this. I have very strong concerns with the candies that is doing. Maria brought this up, the potency of it. There's been several cases already with children. Oh, mom and dad get candy, take it to school, and they have it on the school bus. And it was about 10 of them that landed in an emergency room with overdose. It is potent. It's not the marijuana of my generation of the 60s. Okay, it is potent, much more potent. All right, the plant, if it somehow is able to generate a more potency on it. I don't recommend, I agree with Maria. I think you should concentrate on other sources of revenue for the town, for the betterment of the town, not marijuana. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Patient.
I'm always patient. First of all, I want to thank the committee for bringing this subject forward. I think it's worth the discussion. I happen to be apparently on the opposite side of many of the people who spoke today. I'm an advocate for cannabis and dispensaries, or whatever we wish you call them, here in town. There are 9 liquor stores in this town. And I'm positive that there are no medicinal benefits to alcohol in this town. When I listen to the arguments against cannabis, those are the same arguments that we heard when we went to prohibition and alcohol. And how did that work out? We've had a war on drugs in this country for as long as I can remember. 50 years. And it ain't working. And the sad thing about it is right now, these kids in our schools can go out on the street and get any marijuana cigarette they want, and God knows what's in it. However, if they were to go to a legal dispensary, such as the one that's in the 2 in Eastham, I think there's 5 in P-Town, 2 in Wellfleet, that is regulated just like alcohol. And to get in the door to any of those places, because I tried this because I was curious, you have to show your ID card before you get in the door, when you get in the door, and when you go to buy something, and when you go to pay. So they're checking ID cards. I don't see any people lining upside the streets, causing any legal issues. There's no traffic problems. I went to 3 of them to see. 2 of them are right on Route 6. There's one in Wellfleet, I think it's called Terps. And there's one in Eastham right on Route 6. Was that 6A, called Emerald Grove. They are very professional organizations. And they're clean. They're as nice as any liquor stores I've ever gone in. But the bottom line here is that we can get dangerous drugs off the street and have medicinal marijuana and marijuana that is regulated versus the stuff that these kids are buying today. And it is loaded with all kinds of stuff, and it's not regulated. So if we look at the safety aspects of what's going on out there, that's one reason we should be doing this. We want to talk about revenues. I think Kyle could probably get the revenue sources amounts from the various towns. And frankly, it's staggering. We just built a God knows how big a school for $90 zillion. We built a DPW for another $90 zillion. We're building this, that, and the other thing. This is a way to include revenues in our town and provide a safe substance instead of these kids doing God knows what it is. And as far as you being able to look at other issues, when I created this committee, I envisioned you to be able to walk, talk, and chew bubble gum at the same time. And I believe you still can. So I think you can concentrate on things like economic revitalization and discuss this subject as a community. And I think then, once we have all the input, we've heard a lot of stuff from people here. I'm sure there are people that can give you expert testimony both for and against, and should probably have that. Hear from some of these operations that are going on the Cape anecdotally. How is it working? How much revenue you're making? How many people you're coming in on? Do you have gunfights in your parking lot? You know, but do that homework, and I think part of the benefit is that you do the due diligence, and then we can bring it to town meeting and let the people in this town decide. I don't want to say one way or another if the people of this town want it or not. I don't know, and I guarantee you nobody in this room knows. When do we know? When we go to town meeting. So I would suggest continue this discussion. I thank you for having it, and bring in people and hear the pros and cons, and then make an educated and not an emotional decision on whether you should move forward or not.
Well said, thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. Hi, this is Brett Husak. I am an entrepreneur. I've owned a few businesses, sold a few businesses, and I'm heavily involved in trying to actively grow Yarmouth. I think that when it comes to cannabis, I've been involved in the cannabis industry for 5 years as a consultant when it comes to banking and payments and regulatory challenges that exist at the state and federal level. Throughout today's call, I will say there's been a lot of inaccurate information and personal opinions that I think really take away from what we're trying to accomplish. And I think that's a fact-finding, honest review of the opportunity, the risks, as you had stated before. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with who you are, the pros and the cons of what cannabis can or can't offer. What are the risks exposed to the town, to the residents? The regulatory challenges around cannabis are stricter than any other regulated industry. Alcohol, tobacco, firearms. There's more tracing and tracking implementation with the seed to sale software that's tied directly into the state software, which, for example, if I were to go to a dispensary in Wellfleet and purchase the maximum allowed by the state, I couldn't then go to a dispensary in Eastham and acquire more. They have a lot of checks and balances, if you will, that have been built into the system. There are plenty of banks that are banking cannabis throughout the US. There are quite a few here in Massachusetts. They operate under the old Cole memo before Sessions rescinded it. Even post, his tenure, banks still operate under that, and the Fed is okay with it because they kind of found a middle ground because states were legalizing it. I think we're at over 36, 37 states for legalization at this point. So I think that cannabis is going to find a way into towns all across the US. Whether that's the right fit for Yarmouth or not is up to the voters and the residents. I think that from an entrepreneurial standpoint, as being a business owner, there's a lot of business opportunities around cannabis, albeit delivery, the actual, the growing when it comes to ancillary services, testing labs. Like there's a lot of areas around cannabis that could, help build the community. Not just from a revenue standpoint. I mean, it gives jobs. It can actually increase. So again, without going onto a personal opinion side, I think that it would probably be best for the town, in my opinion, for everyone to get the facts, pull them together, and then have an honest discussion about it.
Okay, Brett, thank you. I don't see anyone else. Anyone else in the room would like to speak?
I just came.
Yeah, I mean, really, Steven asked me, and I think it really circles back to what Brett just said and Jim just said before that, the whole goal of this, the whole goal of inviting this table here today is to have an open and honest discussion. our goal as a committee is to look at revenue opportunities for the town. Right or wrong, I'm not here to decide that. As we all said, what we're here for is to start a dialogue, start a discussion, and let the constituents of Yarmouth be the decision makers on this. And I'm at least 100% in favor of continuing that conversation and seeing where it takes us. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, good.
I have some follow-ups. if you don't
Joe,
mind.
go ahead. Absolutely.
So is this committee the first committee to reconsider since the town meeting
Yeah,
vote?
yeah.
So that begs the question in my mind is what type of a conversation should this committee be having about it? Should we be talking about social and emotional and health issues, or should we limit our conversations to economic issues?
I don't think it should be limited, but I certainly would like to see the first tier being the balance of revenue to the costs associated, and then using the other towns in Massachusetts as the benchmark as those. So, for example, this is 2021. Great Barrington has garnered more than $6.7 million in sales tax revenue and community impact fees, okay, for cannabis. So what we don't see, and we should probably decide on the source of where we're going to get the balance, right? So how much more in police, how much more in fire, et cetera, and those other things. So to it, yeah. So that I think to answer my preference would be focus on the economics. Focus on the economics in the context of all in this region where the other shops are, et cetera. And using verifiable benchmarks, disclose exactly what our benchmarks are going to be. And I think just by putting out the facts, we will actually, people will reach their own social emotional evaluation. And that's
Because
what I
that's not
evaluate
really
for.
under our purview. I mean, the anecdotal stuff and the opinion stuff is really not what we're supposed to be doing. I think.
No,
Well, I didn't say that. I said that
No,
would just,
No,
people would
I-
draw
I'm
their
not
own
disagreeing with
conclusions.
you.
Yeah.
I think he's agree with that.
I'm just saying that if we're going to, as a committee, if we're gonna take on every
No, it's-
aspect of this argument, I don't know that that's why we've been put here.
So maybe that's our offer to the selectmen, that we will contribute our,
I mean, Should they go to the
uh,
health board next?
well,
And let
they'll
them have the same
pick it up when they
conversation?
want, but I mean, I think it is
Or the
incumbent
planning
upon us
board, or-
to bring in the data and come up with the benchmarks that we all feel comfortable relying on.
Hold on, let me just, see before we get too far afield.
Yeah.
I think Joe's right, and you're right. I think we gotta focus on the economic development side of it. That's what we're all about here. I mean, you said it nice. People will come to their own conclusions after we do our work. So what is our work going to be? Let's focus on the economics. I think you're right on point. What's the revenue side of this, and what are the expenses related to the revenue from the shop, whatever you want to call it. So we need to do some work on that. We're gonna get some more research on that. So I think our next, before I turn it over to you, I think our next couple of meetings, and I will turn it over to Kyle, because we're gonna have a lot of work to do if we're gonna dive into this, right? Yep, one second, Tom, let me just finish up. And we got a lot of work on the table ahead of us anyway, so we gotta add this into it. And I think what we need to do is work with Kyle and get a timeline as to what our work is going to include and when we expect to have it all done. What the ultimate goal is, at some point, get it to the board of selectmen and the town meeting. So with that said, I decide maybe I can work with Kyle and work on an agenda and bring it back to the committee, what's going to be laid out for the next few months. But go ahead.
My question is, I'm gonna need or I guess it's more of a comment. I'm gonna need some direction from the committee in terms of what exactly information you guys would like to receive in order to make your decision. Because basically what I'm hearing and what I figured was the gist of the conversation in the beginning is balancing the economic benefit of it with the social impacts and impacts on public safety services and things of that nature. In your packet, I did provide the economic benefit from the town of Provincetown. You saw their revenues, and I reached out to the lieutenant with the Provincetown Police Department to ask them what their thoughts were on the impact. And his comment was, it's just been a impact to traffic in the area because it's on Commercial Street in Provincetown, which has traffic problems. But other than that, they did not report any concerns. So what do you want me to do that for every community on the Cape, or what information exactly do you need? Because I took a stab at thinking, that was what I thought you guys would want in order to make it sounds like you want more information, which is totally fine, but I don't know exactly what information you're looking for. So I need some direction in order.
I think we gotta
Could
figure
we,
that out.
could we all submit our thoughts to you or me? I'm fine on synthesizing it, because then it won't be a public meeting. It will just be, I'll organize the data. And share it with you. I mean, I'm like,
I think
Or
you
do
guys
you
can
wanna
just
send
send
it
it
all
straight
You
to
can
me.
send it to Kyle.
so I think I would start with the Cannabis Control Commission and tell them our town is looking for some economic data relative to.
I did reach out to them and
Yeah.
they were not willing to share. They did not have any information for tax revenue. They directed me to the Department of Revenue.
Okay.
I asked the Department of Revenue. They said they cannot divulge information for taxpayer confidentiality reasons. So that's when I went to the Provincetown website and got their information from them. That's what they told me. Can show you that.
Can we find other communities that, like Great Barrington is very rural, and it's, the
I just
reason they have so much revenue is because everyone in the region is going there. So if we could find other towns that have a similar population, I know we have a huge influx in the tourist season, but 9 months out of the year, we're around.
Maybe Mashpee.
24,000.
The only other towns on the Cape are Wellfleet, East Hampton.
No,
It
it's
doesn't-
more than that.
But it doesn't.
Mashpee,
Recreational.
I think we
Mashpee is
could look-
recreational.
Looking for a coastal
Sandwich
town
just-
that's seasonal.
Sandwich hasn't implemented
Like
yet.
Yeah.
Gloucester.
Gloucester.
You
Yeah.
could do Northampton.
It's, uh,
Like,
Uh,
don't limit yourself
yeah.
to East
No, I
or
mean, I'm-
Mass.
That's fine. Tell me what towns you want me to,
Yeah.
and I'll reach out. That's
Let's
fine.
let's keep it to the kid.
Yeah, well,
No,
people saying
no.
on Cape too. and-
Just tell me
and-
We can go
Yes.
forever.
I know, so here's what I'm gonna say, hold on. Let's, because we only have a person working on this, let's get our thoughts and comments, ideas to Kyle. Let Kyle, and if you want a couple of other people to work with Kyle, synthesize all that data and bring it back to us at a subsequent meeting, and we can help him along the way, because we can't expect him to do it all.
The Cannabis Control Commission is a trusted resource for research on the impact of cannabis legislation, regularly disseminating new insights on the effects of cannabis.
Do you want me to
policies
show you the email that I sent to
No,
them? I mean,
Kyle, I don't disbelieve you, but I also,
You're in disbelief.
Give him a call.
no,
See
I
what
didn't
they
say I
said.
disbelieved him, but I'm not quite sure I actually, no, I know what they said to him. I know what they said to him, but what I don't
You
believe is that they don't have the
Right,
research.
Right.
It's the government.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a new administration.
All right, so-
I'm here to help.
Okay, okay, how about we reach out to our legislative delegation, and see if they,
I did reach out to Julianne Sears' office,
how about our state reps,
which
especially,
is one of our state reps, but I can reach out to all of them if you'd like.
no, I meant reps, not senate. That's
Okay,
fine.
I don't really know the difference. So,
No, Sears or
Two
Senator.
different branches.
okay, just tell me who you want me to reach out to and I'm happy to do it.
Tim Whalen,
And Kip Higgs.
Okay. You want them to come to a future meeting or you want them to
I think,
submit?
just a
feedback
simple
or-
question, the economic, EDC at Yarmouth is inquiring into the economic benefits and, economic impacts
Okay.
relative to cannabis. And do they have any information that they would
No problem.
like to share with us?
I do know that the state police had a whole program to go around, because when I was on the Cape Cod Chamber Board, one of the colonels of the state police, or the colonel, whatever, came down with a whole group of state troopers, and they ran through a whole of what it costs, what the real cost behind cannabis is on a local policing level. Granted, the source it was coming from, but it was at least a data-driven seminar that they presented to us. So there are people out there that can at least provide that. I can get you some contact information.
Sure.
Still have it.
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful for us as a committee to take a look at the HCA process too, because all of the things that we're bringing up, the mitigation is spoken to in that host community agreement.
Okay.
So understanding, what a prospective dispensary owner is, what kind of a partnership they're entering into with the town is important, because I think that a lot of those public safety issues are addressed in the HCA.
Excuse
All right.
me,
One second, let me finish up our business here. So we agreed to get all, if we have questions or ideas, comments, we want to give them to Kyle. And once he gets all those, Kyle's gonna need a little assistance, I would imagine, to
I'm gonna have to meet with you to try to figure out exactly how we're going, what we're gonna talk about at the next meeting, because I'm sure not everybody's gonna have the same things that they want for information, so. I think if we can get a Massachusetts Cannabis Commissioner at a meeting, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
They can speak to a lot of that host community agreement stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, so you want to set a date?
Can I just
Go ahead.
something?
Go ahead.
Since Provincetown was a resource, would it be possible to talk to their town staff and say, what was the process you went through?
we good? Yeah.
Because maybe that would be helpful, like, okay, you've already done this, what was your process? And then maybe they have some information that would be helpful for us to go through that.
Okay. All right, so within the next couple of weeks, get that to Kyle, or as soon as possible, and then
For the next meeting.
when is our next? meeting?
June 28th,
For 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
We need it by time.
It's up to you guys. It's not up to me.
Yeah, we're not.
There's, yeah, it's not driven by
We're not
any sort
driven-
of specific
We said that
timeline.
one before, which is.
We're not
it's an open
fast
process
tracking
right now.
this.
We're not very fast tracking. So,
Yeah,
good point.
I'll send this is a report on executive summary of report of host community agreements and marijuana establishments. So I think with a little effort, we can all probably
Yeah.
shoot stuff over to.
Okay, so another question. We're not going to meet in July and August?
It's up to you guys.
What's your thought? I'm just thinking about, we don't have to have this into Kyle by June 28th. We got time to get it to him. So if we gave him some time, in a month, 6 weeks or something, he would come back at some point in time.
It would be good, it would, if possible, it'd be good to get to me by June 28th, because then we could figure it out and start working on it and get a meeting on the books, you know?
Okay.
To July off and whatnot.
We'll take
Okay.
July off
I was
in
just thinking
August,
that.
maybe, yeah.
All right, does that sound good? So get it to you by the 28th, information to you, and
Yeah.
then we can meet. Set a meeting up for August sometime. Good? Right? All right, so I saw some hands, raised. Jim, and I know you question, so I had a
Yeah,
question.
in regards to town meeting, I think in whatever you decide to do, if you go ahead with this, I would put it on a townwide referendum. Secret ballot vote instead of town meetings can be stacked. I have questions about what's going on with town meetings. Believe me, you know what goes on, Jim, as much as I do for years. I would put it on a town-wide referendum, let everybody, we got 25, 21,000, 23,000 registered voters. now. And I think they have a choice, because you can't get 20,000 people at, in a town meeting, you barely get 200.
Yeah,
And I think there you
Yes,
would get
that's state
more
law.
of a consensus of
I think it's
the
just
voters
laws.
of the town.
Not a
Instead of
selectmen
town.
decision,
If
yeah.
not, then maybe a private petition can put it on a townwide referendum, making it a mandatory referendum.
It's something to think about, where we are ahead of the skis on that one. We're not even at that
Yeah,
point.
I think the referendum is the best way to go, because you get in that voting booth, it's secret. It's supposed to be.
How long have these operations that are in business already, how long have they been around?
Which ones are you referring to? Like,
How many, I thought we only had about 3 or 4 on the Cape.
no, they've been on the Cape for a few years. They're in Provincetown, Chero, Wellfleet, Eastham, Mashpee, Sandwich just allowed it. I think that's it.
I just asked, how long have they been in operation?
Yeah, I think a couple years.
I think some of us want to
Some of them 4
years.
years.
4, yeah.
When did they, I mean,
Well, when did
3 years, 4
the
years?
law pass?
2016.
2016?
And then
Yeah, it
Then
took
remember they
forever.
went around the
Right.
Commonwealth and asked for input. And then they
2018.
The longest
started,
one is
they
that-
appointed people. and
The
then they
2018 would
promulgated
probably be.
Regulations. So, yeah.
So the first stores were open in 18,
Took
but
a
not
while.
here on Cape.
Yeah. Jim,
And
did
that-
you-
So the other thing is, in your efforts, there was nobody who was willing to give you any financial information.
There were certain sources that weren't. I did get financial information from the town of Provincetown in terms of their tax revenue, which I'm happy to share with you if you're curious. I can pull it up
No,
right now.
that's okay. I'm just, because if it's so difficult to get these, at least at
It's-
state level,
it's,
that he's willing, well, we're not giving it for this reason, and we're not giving it to you for another reason.
The reason DOR didn't want to do it is because a lot of towns have only one dispensary. So for taxpayer confidentiality reason, they can't say how much tax revenue they've gotten, because then you know how much they pay in
There's also
taxes.
private enterprises too. Didn't you're under no obligation when you audit your taxes to divulge your tax revenue.
Right.
So that's what DORs doesn't want to get sued from that side either.
Yeah.
Jim, and then
Just a quick wrap up with you. I'm sure some of the dispensary people will be able to work with you as far as the logistical stuff of that. As far as referendums and everything, that's outside. There's a group on Tuesday night who gets to decide that. And the last part is you might want to have to give Kyle more work to do, but for example, when we looked at the boardwalk, we heard all kinds of complaints of suggestions about crime and other things. So we had conversations with the police departments that had boardwalks. So maybe have some discussions with police and maybe even help in
he's already reached out to some police officers.
in each of those towns.
Yeah,
So just
yeah,
as a,
yeah.
because you can't just look at how much money it's bringing in, but you gotta look at, just like
you said, yeah.
what's it cost.
I think we talked to our chief. and-
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, he has an experience of storing his
Yeah,
time
they,
there.
but they chat.
Mhm.
I'm sure they
Yes,
do.
ma'am.
There's a couple of things. One is, the whole issue of revenue. There has been some study done that indicates that actually the sale of illegal drugs, increases, based on the fact that people are trying to do tax avoidance. You know, I find that hard to believe that when you try to avoid paying taxes. The second part is that there's also some questions about exactly how accurate is the reporting on the revenue, because if they're selling it, they need to then accurately report, so the town is indeed getting their share and the towns. And so there's some talk, and there has been some looking at the accuracy of that. The third thing I'd like to say as a point of information, you mentioned several times there was a packet for tonight's meeting, and I would actually like to request a copy of that packet.
problem.
Thank you.
It should be on the, you should post
Yeah, but I
that.
have a problem in terms of downloading equipment and that, so I'd like a physical
Post
copy.
it.
I'd like a physical copy of the packet,
He
thank
has to
you.
post the agenda. We'll get
I know, thank you.
He has to post it. So it's not-
I know, but the package you should, if you have a packet, that should also, the selectmen do.
I don't usually post the packet. I usually just post the agenda. That's
Just
the,
asking
that's the
for a
requirement for the open meeting law. I'm happy to give anybody the packet if they want. You want a copy? I'm happy to send it.
Thank you.
All right, everyone.
And just one other thing for the record, in terms of talking about other law enforcement impact. I don't know if you guys saw in the packet was an article on Sandwich and their discussion with it. They asked their police chief about it. And like you said, they do talk to their other police chiefs. He said, as far as going to recreational, I'm just looking at surrounding communities. I haven't seen a lot of law enforcement impact to it. That's the quote from the article.
Touch base with a classmate of yours too. didn't you?
Yeah, Lieutenant Greg Hennick from the Provincetown Police Department.
Yes, sir.
Everybody else has to say. I disagree with Joe, unfortunately. You are the community and economic development committee, so don't be afraid to look at the other parts of it.
Good point.
Yeah, good point.
You have the issues of marijuana in this town without having tax revenue. I don't necessarily agree with some of it, but it's here. Watch the clouds of smoke, drive down the road, smell the skunks down 28. And
Take a bike ride.
And whatever it is, yeah, you can't even go for a walk without it. And even, if you think about a grow facility, if we had a grow facility, nobody would even know it was here. It's a steel building, it's climate control, blah, blah, blah. And they control it, again, you talk about controlling the quality of the product. That's where that all happens and starts. So I see both sides of the issue, but unless you find a way to stop the problems that come in pot, you might as well grab some of the money that goes with it.
Almost to the point. Thank you.
That's a good, excellent point, Kurt. So should our discussion not include a growing facility?
You don't have to allow that through zoning. We're talking about recreational.
I know, but
marijuana
I'm just
shops.
saying, why?
But I think
why
they
should
banned
we
at the
not?
same town meeting that they banned
So,
shops.
I mean, those are, you're right, they're self-contained, they use a lot of water. There would, there would be all these other conditions on it, but I think we should, if we're gonna try to provide as much information, objective information, I think it's probably in our best interest to include growing facilities.
So I thought we were speaking about in general terms, but now we're being specific.
Well, remember the conversation was we talking about medical or dispensaries? What
Right.
kind of
Yeah, what is it?
dispensaries?
So how was it banned? Was it banned
just, I think it's,
Forgive me, because I probably should have looked at this, but if you're bringing in grow facilities, then testing,
So
delivery, I mean, all of the other licensable uses.
that's the, Article 26 was the approved article.
So that's the question. That's the question. That's the legal question, whether or not marijuana establishment includes growing facilities. Or whether or not there's another definition in the, so I'll look it up.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
So I'm not sure we
if I
could,
can just agree with what Maria said, I think you need to look at the economic advantages of not just selling marijuana.
Growing.
As the gentleman before said, there's a lot of ancillary
Right,
effects to it.
right.
You know, selling pot pipes, for example, or dispensary delivery services, or even agricultural and growing. So there's a number of different other areas of economic advantage that are not just involved in selling it. It's the other stuff that, so you gotta look, I think you gotta look at the big picture.
Yeah.
I think
Because
you
Massachusetts-
just brought up the Board of
Sure.
Health issue, because that's
Go to
the
chair.
end of the Board of Health.
Maybe.
Yeah, abandoned these stores.
All right, we got enough on the table right now. Let's regroup. Let's get some more, one second, man. Let's get information into Kyle, all right? And we can regroup with Kyle and come back and discuss it at the meeting in August, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And would you mind if I follow up on the definition
No,
of a marijuana establishment? I'm getting a couple of references.
we need to keep the meeting open now.
Sam,
You have
Yeah,
one more
yeah,
question
yeah.
relative to what we're talking
Is
about?
there some kind of,
You've changed a
reservation
little bit,
about,
so
how you grow
you got a little bigger.
But in other words, open air or it
No.
has to be enclosed.
It has to be enclosed with high
Because there was
security.
a major problem in
High
both
security.
Colorado
Yeah,
and
okay.
California when they
Water
did it open.
usage and everything. is gonna be a
Yeah,
problem.
but
Okay.
It has to be
We,
enclosed.
we all set to go. We have folks will be, we're all set. I have a motion.
We got minutes.
We get the meeting minutes from May 24th. We need a motion for that. Thank you. Pat.
I'll make a motion to accept them as printed in the warrant and the agenda.
Can I,
Second.
you second? All those in favor?
I,
Opposed? So, okay. Do we have any member step updates? Any step updates, Kyle?
One thing is Zip Trip. Okay. Zip Trip in Yarmouth on Smugglers Beach, at Smugglers Beach on July 8th from 8 to 10 a.m. It's gonna be a live broadcast. So that's cool. There's also a Discovery Plus special going on at the Taylor Bray Farm. I actually haven't read the email yet. Do you know how, do you want to summarize it?
I just only read the first two.
Okay, yeah. Something about,
Barn restoration.
yeah, highlighting the barn restoration going on at Taylor Bray Farm, you know, the Discovery Plus network. So that's kind of cool.
I see we all survived the invasion by the pirates.
Yes,
How'd that go,
yes.
man? Do you know?
Yeah, I went. I brought my granddaughter.
Oh, good.
It was very quiet.
Was that?
And I think our personal opinion from the chamber standpoint was he picked two very difficult weekends with graduation.
Graduations.
Yep. And so it wasn't as well attended as it could have been. We understand why he picked those weekends, but I don't think they considered the impact that the graduations had on them.
Well, we now have a third long weekend in
Yes,
June.
Juneteenth.
So maybe I was thinking the same thing, because I heard.
Yeah,
I heard
maybe
that you
shift
are-
it back a week.
But I
Move
mean,
it back.
the entertainment was wonderful. He has, since last year purchased like Renaissance games and he had
Yep.
two swings that are you manually have to get on them to move them. There's no like mechanical thing. It's all geared, wooden gears. And it was just fascinating to watch. I mean, people that were there were having a great time. My granddaughter found black fairy wings and that is it. My son just texted me, she's still wearing them. So that was a big hit. So, you know, we'll reach out to them again
Yeah.
this week. We'll give them a day or two to kind of
Yeah.
relax.
Well, hopefully it was successful. I know we put a lot of effort into it, so.
The only thing I'm going to say, since we have the chair of the drive-in site committee, and I did mention this to Kyle, I thought it was really unfortunate that when you got out of your car, that the grass was up to your knees. And I would think that at least if the town is gonna welcome events to that location, that they could at least cut the grass or contract with someone to cut the grass. Because to me, and my husband, who doesn't get involved in any of my work, felt that that was a reflection on the town, not on the event, because we own, the town owns the property.
Yeah.
So I would hope the drive-in site committee could say that if you are getting income from an event, that money should be designated to maintain the property in some way if you want events to come.
I believe you guys have said that to the selectmen.
I'm reiterating it as an attendee, as a resident, and as the director of the Chamber of Commerce. That was the only unfortunate thing.
And I know you're not disparaging any of the work that the
No,
chairman has
no.
done. You said that he's done a great job, and I'll echo that too. But having said that, Jim,
Just, I agree with what you said. Yes, we've indicated that funds should go. I will tell you that the town took it upon themselves to put an RFP out without discussing with the drive-in site committee whether they should have events there. I happen to be one that is opposed to having events there until we get our act done and have infrastructure accepted done. But that's not the position on Tuesday nights. So they were there and have been there, not necessarily at the agreement of the drive-in site committee. And number two, there was nobody to meet them when they came. I literally told them to cut the lock on it. I came into town hall to get the combination. I called them to try to get this combination for the double lock. If you think somebody would have to greet these people as they come in to set up a venue, and they didn't, so I told them to cut the lock. So the site wasn't mowed and there was nobody there to greet them. That is a reflection on town leadership, town staff, town anything but me.
If I can say that side rail by the gate,
That's how they got in there first.
no, so if I can tell you for someone who lives on Parker's River, people go through that side gate every single day.
Yep.
They drive right up to where the shell fishing is and they fish. So people go in there every single day and they probably litter, because there's full access for a vehicle to drive right in.
Yep.
They took your green fence down, just so you know.
No,
So
that
that
was
they-
at the shellfish place. I left that section.
Well,
down.
just so you know, so cars now drive right up to the river. They back.
Yeah,
their
I had to
pickups
leave that
in.
section open.
Yeah, I'm just
for
saying, so they
T&I.
drive their pickups in with their coolers and they go fishing every night.
So we have to be smarter. These are growing pains for that site.
Yeah.
It's also temporary because starting hopefully next summer, we're gonna construct on the site. So this is really kind of a moot discussion, to be honest. Other than throwing me under the bus. but that was
No,
good.
no. I was saying, so even for,
40 years.
so even for the carnival, if the grass needs to get mowed, we should find a way to do that.
You're preaching to the choir as far as I'm concerned.
August, September, the carnival.
It might not happen. It was supposed to be in August. I haven't heard back from them.
Bummer.
just, I think we're almost done. Anyone else?
I do wonder if that-
Go ahead. While you're doing that, I just wanted to get on with it. Kyle, I think everyone feels around the table that you're doing a great job. It's not necessarily Kyle. It's not Kyle's job to keep an eye out on the, you think would be the
Oh,
parking lot. You know, crackers and cookies? Cookies?
I hope it's under $25.
So we had a.
Package of edibles.
we had,
So you can have mine.
I haven't met a cookie I don't like. that.
What is up, Mary?
The chamber had a ribbon cutting today at Love April, which is a huge cookie company in town.
Where was
Oh.
that?
Here, I'll pass one. I'll pass
That
one.
went to Jim.
Oh, thank you. I got a heart.
Give Jim the broken heart.
My heart is
First
not-
time anybody's claimed just got the heart, so thanks.
Yeah,
Now,
This
so,
is proof I have a heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cracked, Jim.
so we just,
Now, here.
so I just wanted to also, I'll put another plug in for Kyle. Kyle attempts to come to every single ribbon cutting and has a presence for the town of Yarmouth. And we thought it was Flag Day today, so we thought we'd say thank you. And whenever you see that we have a ribbon cutting, you guys should come because those businesses need to know that you guys are there to support them. And Kyle does that every single day. When we have a business that needs.
I don't need, thank you. I appreciate it. I don't need it.
Send it out over.
Great.
All right, I'll send it to you.
Mary, where is this?
Love April. So it's on Station Avenue. Do you know where the trophy store is in that brown building?
Yeah.
So she's right in there. She's had a nail salon there for over 10 years.
Okay, the freestanding building.
Yes.
Was this nail polisher for us?
So she converted her salon to now
Cookies and
a
nails.
bakery. She had over 40 people there at the ribbon cutting, so it was
They
great.
sold out.
Is what we're not.
Yeah, they did. So enjoy the cookie and stuff like that.
Thank you. Oh, I have it. I have your, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
You give it, remember? But we can't chat until after. the-
So cookies and.
Can I make a
garbage
motion
bag.
to adjourn?
So we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
I'm so voted. Thank you very much. everyone. Good job.
I love civil
I was gonna say,
conversation.